Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, giving you the edge you need to get into the colleges of your dreams, with your host, Steve Schwartz. That's me. Today, we're talking with Christine Abrams.
Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, Christine. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks so much for being on the show. Now, Christine, you've got a ton of college counseling experience and counseling experience in general. Tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today.
Well, it's an interesting road, and I think it's important for everyone to hear because I originally went to school to be an English teacher and an ESL teacher, and I did that for about 3 years, and then decided to retread and got into financial services as a secretary because in middle school I learned how to type, so that was really helpful. And from there, I lasted in financial services for 15 years, and I ended up becoming a business-to-business marketing person, a vice president, and spent a number of years there. And really, my degree had nothing to do with that. I had no financial background. It was a liberal arts degree. And what attracted them to me, or what they found in me, was that I had an English degree. And so that was really important to them because I was literate, I could read, I could think, and I learned everything I needed to learn. And then I ultimately went back to education. I was downsized after 9/11 and again got another degree in counseling and became a school counselor and loved the college process, and I wanted to help kids be successful. And from there I ended up becoming a supervisor at Hopewell Valley. So I've actually been in the college game since 2003.
Oh, so you got a ton of experience there. Was there any pivotal moment that kind of led you to enter education in particular? Anything that kind of inspired you?
I'll tell you, I think for me, it was always in my blood. My parents had nothing to do with education, but as a preschooler, I would line up my stuffed animals and teach them, even though I didn't really know what that meant. So I always wanted to do education, and I love working with young people. My particular focus is adolescents. I really like working with the high school population. And part of it is because right now, it was much clearer when I was growing up. Kids sort of knew what they wanted to do or more willing to explore. Now kids are very focused on, very driven to have high-powered careers right away, and they stress themselves out. And so part of my job, a lot of it is counseling them to slow down. It's okay. You don't have to have 9,000 AP classes. You will get into a college. And the point is you want to get into a college that's right for you. Because what we see is kids get in. We really don't have a lot of trouble getting them in. They don't stay. And part of it is time management skills, maturity levels. Parents have coddled them for a long time, so they don't know how to advocate for themselves or take care. And there's a resilience factor that's missing. So we're trying to build that resilience factor here in them and teaching them these skills, because that will get them through college much more so than their content knowledge. They just have to have the stick-to-it kind of attitude.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Those sorts of skills are so key, Christine. Are there any particular students you've worked with that kind of stand out to you as either really having those skills or not having those skills? Any particular individuals that kind of stick in your mind?
What's most hard for kids is to stand up to their parents. So it's very hard for them to draw a line with their parents, say, no, mom and dad, I don't want to do this. This is what I'm really interested in. I need your support. So one student that stands out is a very, very bright young man who came in and said to me, Dr. Abrams, I need to understand what my options are with Yale and Columbia. I want to apply to both of them early, but I know I really can't, and I don't know which to choose. And I said, well, which do you like better? Well, I think they're both equally good. And I said, okay, what do you want to do? So he looks at me and just says, architecture. And I said, oh, you don't seem very excited about that. That's like asking someone who's getting married, and they're like, yeah, I'm really excited. You got to have a little passion here, right? So I said, well, why do you want to be an architect? You make good money. I said, well, besides that, what are you excited about? The angles that you're drawing? I mean, I don't know what goes in architecture. My parents really want me to do that. And I said, do you want to do that? I said, no, this is a horrible question to ask. And trust me, everything said in this office is confidential. I will not rat you out. He said, I really don't want to do that. I said, well, what's your passion? He said, honestly, it's economics. I said, oh, Well, why aren't they? Well, they feel that I won't be able to get a job in economics. They feel architecture is much more practical. I said, well, what do you love about economics? He said, everything. The numbers, the way it affects countries. He said, I stay up all night and read blogs. I said, really? Is there any particular blog you love? He mentioned the name of this blog and a professor who wrote it. I said, where is this professor from? He said, Columbia. I said, you get on the phone right now and you contact that man and say, I am up all night savoring your blogs because I love everything you do and I want to come to Columbia and work with you. He said, you think I'll get through? I said, you try. If you have to go to that man's door, you take a train into New York and you go. And he got into Columbia. So, and that was it. And like he gave his parents the pushback and he discovered his passion. And that kid was on fire talking about economics. Doesn't excite me, but my job is to help them uncover that. And I try to tell parents that. I had another student who said, we were doing a college essay writing symposium, and he says, I got nothing to write about. I said, well, what do you love? He said, what do I love? I love sneaking down to the kitchen every night, going into the pantry and tasting everything we have, because I love the way textures. And I said, there's your college essay, buddy. I said, that's it. I said, maybe you want to go into food science, and it's like this kind of stuff rather than traditional. I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a businessman. That is so vague. Businessman. What does that mean? So that's the kind of stuff I try to do with them. And those are the kids that stand out. And if I can make a difference, that's what's really meaningful to me.
No, absolutely. You notice a difference when you work with students, those who are passionate about what they want to pursue and those who are not. That your economics, example reminds me of a student I worked with who was equally passionate about science and up all night reading science journals, reading science websites, just digesting and learning everything she could about neuroscience in particular. And there you go. If you find a professional in that field, that's the person you want to contact. That's the academic you want to reach out to. And that passion will come across not only when speaking with that individual, but also in the college essay, in the college interview, and also in your letters of reference, your recommendation letters.
Right. And what I try to explain to parents and students is stop looking at these institutions as, gods. Remember how we used to look at doctors? They could do no wrong. You can't ask them any questions. They say, take the pill. You take it. You never question. No, these are consumables. You're buying a program. You're paying money for it and you expect something in exchange. So therefore, you have the right to ask whatever you want, go in there, do what you need to do, and question and contact these people. They're human beings right behind the desk. Just because it's Columbia doesn't mean anything. It's a name, right? And they've created this mystique that you can break through. So don't be frightened of them. The kids shouldn't be and the parents shouldn't be. It's harder for the kids because they still have this feeling of authority. They haven't really grown up yet to say, let me question authority. It's hard for them to. But the parents should definitely get in there or not them, have the kids coach your child to get in there and ask the tough questions. And parents should never, ever call the admissions office. That's what I tell the kids all the time. Sometimes parents will pose as the child. Can't do that. Okay. So, and coach your child, go in, contact that professor, go to some classes, ask the tough questions. And I think they'll feel more comfortable when they're empowered to do that.
Sure. One thing you got to keep in mind is that there's the institution, but there's also, as you said, a million people within that institution, and you can reach out to any of them. Brian Greene, string theory professor, he's been known to just respond to individual emails from students at the university, but also people are checking their own email, believe it or not. You write them an email, they might write back at 3 a.m, and they will look at everything that comes in, especially if it's complimenting them. I mean, you can resist that sort of thing, right?
Right. And that's the relationship building part, but it sets you apart as an applicant. How many kids are going to do that? How many kids are going to write to Brian Greene and say, oh my God, I'm in love with string theory. I'm in love with you. I want to study with you. That man will go to admissions and say, this kid's applying. I want him. Okay. And so, but the kids need to understand because that really sets them apart, are the ones who have the passion. And that's a good way to build a relationship with admissions and the university. And I think betters your odds of getting into the school that you really want to get into.
Sure. You got to keep in mind that you're allowed to send these emails. Obviously, make sure that you conduct yourself professionally and that you don't have misspellings. Those are easy things to kind of check beforehand because they will make an impression of you. But as long as you're not harassing them and crossing a line, it's okay to reach out and say hello. And if you can write to professors at multiple universities.
That's right.
And if you don't hear back from one, you could, maybe reach out to a different one. You got to cast a wide net.
Right. Yeah. And I would say do something interesting in your high school career, because honestly, most of it's pretty cut and dry. Nothing stands out. So do an internship, not Habitat for Humanity, which they all know you're doing to get the community service piece. Go out and intern. If you want to be a scientist, go out and intern with a scientist. Figure it out. Depending on where you are, like we're in New Jersey, a lot of pharmaceutical firms. And your counseling office will reach out to those firms and say, look, can you take an intern for the summer, unpaid? Kid wants to see what's going on. And it's really important. And this way it gives you a realistic understanding of what you're going into. So you're not halfway through your college experience and say, oh my God, what did I do? This is a nightmare. I couldn't bear to be a scientist or an accountant or a lawyer.
No, absolutely, Kristen, definitely. I want to ask, aside from the examples of kids who are doing it right, what are some examples of maybe kids who kind of pursue it the wrong way? Like, any worst moments in college admissions that kind of stand out to you?
Well, we had some students one student in particular, who asked for an interview with one of the colleges, and they came in, and I counseled against it. I said, just personality-wise, it's not going to work. And you've got to be realistic about yourself too. That's not her strength. Some people have the gift of gab, others, no, much better writing or doing something. She did not ask any interesting questions about the school. Whatever she asked, they had already put on the website. It didn't seem like she was passionate about the school. It was a complete bomb. And she was so upset about this. But, we tried. And I think it was a lesson learned. For her, that's not the kind of thing she should be doing. Much better on paper, not necessarily in person. So I think, you have to have a realistic understanding. If you are going to go on an interview, you really got to prep, and you really got to dig deep and ask questions that are meaningful to you. Not questions that your parents want answered, but questions that you need to have answered that you can't find anywhere else, because they're figuring, colleges need to be flattered, right? So because they think it's like you're going on a date, right? Even though you may be dating multiple men, you don't need them to know about each other, and they need to feel that when you're with them, they are the object of your desire. And that's what you have to do in an interview, glow and gush, and oh my God, I saw the school got this or that, or these professors are highly blah, blah, they won these awards, I love them. Find out information that isn't, that they wouldn't think you would do. So I can give you an example. When I went on a job interview for a gold trading firm, private company, wasn't public. Couldn't find information anywhere, right? What did they tell you? You go on an interview, you research the company, you tell them. What the heck? Couldn't find anything. I called them and I said, hi, I'm doing some research on your firm. Could you just answer some questions for me? And the secretary's like, sure. I got all this information. I go in on the interview and the guy says, what do you know about our company? I said, this is what I know. He said, how'd you get that? I said, I got my ways. And this is prior to the internet, okay?
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, that's what you have to do, right? You've got to impress them with your desire to be in there and really talk to them about what they know, but they didn't think anybody else knew. And that's hard. So you really have to want to go to that school. And then, just be yourself, be passionate. If you really want to go and there's something you really want to do, that you must be passionate. I tell kids all the time, you want to have multiple majors and the school you want to go doesn't have them, call the dean and say, can you create a major for me? Now that's fascinating. No kids do that, right? And say, I want to major in, musical economics. I don't know if there's a major like that. I don't know if there ever will be one. But that's what you do. That's what, that shows creativity. That shows inventiveness. And they'll say, wow, maybe we don't have that major, but we can work with you. There's something else we can do for you. That stands out. That's the stuff you have to do, because most kids aren't doing that these days. And you need to.
Totally. Coming back to what we were saying before about going the extra mile. And the fact that you are allowed to reach out and talk to these. It's not even just the admissions office. You can also call the office of a particular department that you might want to major in. And even if you can't get through to a professor, you could still speak with the staff in that office and get that information from them, and then mention that you did that during your interview. That's just one of the things you can do to communicate your passion for this school, right? That'll definitely impress, the interviewer, whoever they might be, whether they're an alum or they're someone working in the office. I'm wondering if there are any examples of students you've seen, anything that stand out, who maybe weren't necessarily naturally the best people to go on an interview, but they were able to kind of improve how they presented themselves. Is there anyone who comes to mind, kind of like those flowers who blossomed, so to speak?
Yes. At that point for that young woman, it was too late. She wasn't doing any more. She did get into a school. She was fine. But as a result of that, we have something called Career Lunch and Learns, and we bring in speakers to teach students how to go on interviews, for jobs or for the college process. And they practice, and we coach them. And one student in particular was very shy. And I worked with her, and she ended up getting into a school in the South. She did interview. She actually called them and asked. She was down there with her parents, and she did very well. So it was practice, but it was hard work. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's not necessarily your strength, but it can become a strength, or you can improve it. Because look, you're going to need reading, writing, and speaking skills. I don't care what they tell you. STEM, all this other stuff. If you can't speak and you can't write, you're not getting anywhere, because most of it's based on that, right? Even mathematical problems, as you know, are written in prose, not necessarily, and you have to figure out the formula. They're word problems. We all know those from school. So you have to be able to read critically, to write critically, and to communicate, because that's really effective. And we try to emphasize that, even with the quote unquote kids that haven't blossomed yet. We try. We encourage parents to do it too. And that's why we're always telling them, you need to make the calls. You need to ask for what you want. You need to be specific, and it's okay. And we start that here at the high school with them when they come to the teacher. Did you talk to the teacher? Let's practice how to do that. And then we'll give the teacher a heads up and say, so-and-so is coming to advocate. So just listen and be supportive of that process. And it works very well. And it gives the kids the confidence to move on to more authority figures and ask for what they need and want.
Sure. I'm wondering if one of our listeners out there isn't at a school where they have the resources to provide this kind of coaching or a career lunch and learn, that sort of thing. I'm wondering if there are any resources out there, maybe some online that you know of, that could help students who don't have that same kind of support network at their school.
I don't have any that come to mind, but I'm sure if you Google them, just speaking skills or presentation skills. And I'm sure there's something you can watch a YouTube video. Film yourself, get feedback from your friends, go to a teacher, go to your English teacher, say, I filmed myself, take a look at this. What do you think? How can I improve? Most schools have public speaking classes, so definitely take a public speaking class, even though it's probably the last thing you want to do. Because what are people most frightened of? Public speaking. They don't like making presentations, even adults. But when you get used to it, right, and I think part of it is because you're so insecure about your content. Once you know your content, it's fine. You just have to master getting up there and speaking. And your English teachers can help you with that. Or, as I say, video yourself and look at yourself. Say, would I be interested in listening to this? And you got to be critical of yourself. How can I improve that? What is it my tone? Is it my speed? Is it my enthusiasm? So you have to take a look at all of these things.
No, totally. Those are such great ideas. I mean, we're thinking, how do you video yourself? Most computers or smartphones have a camera on them, right?
Things all the time. So
yeah. You could put that up on YouTube, show it to friends, or if you're embarrassed, you could post a link to it on a message board temporarily, then edit out the link later if you want to hide it down the line. Yeah. But get some feedback from random internet strangers who there's no stakes involved, and they'll be willing to help you. You'd be surprised, and then get that feedback or show it to friends and family. And there's something a little bit different when you actually look at yourself on the other end, and others have that chance to look at you and give you some feedback. You'd be surprised what you learn. Even just something like smiling more.
Right.
And also the idea of their public speaking class. I mean, my high school had one. I didn't take it. I later wished I had, because later it's a lot more effort to go out there and find that sort of setting where you can get that feedback. But hey, in high school, it's free, and you'll definitely benefit from that in college. And you could choose to talk about any topic that you want. And then obviously pick something you are confident about and you feel you know something about. And then you just kind of grow and learn from there.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. So yeah, it's really, really great advice there. Thanks so much, Christine. I'll link to some resources on how to improve your skills in the show notes. But yeah, definitely those are all great tips already. I'm wondering if there are any students you've seen who kind of had that light bulb moment when it came to interviewing skills or when it came to something else related to the admissions process. Does anything come to mind?
I just know, there's no one that comes to mind particularly, but I do know when I speak to students and I talk to them particularly about creating their own major, advocating for themselves. Even when I tell parents, they look at me like, wow, I had never thought of that. And I keep thinking it's because everybody's so bedazzled by these colleges. And you got to get over the bedazzlement, and I got over it way back when my husband took a class at Columbia in computer programming. And the professor wasn't getting back to him, and he had a terrible experience, and he took it as an adult. And I said, so complain. What do you mean complain? I said, you paid for it, complain. So he went up the chain and he got his money back. And I said, and he goes, originally you don't want to do this at Columbia because we live in New York City. I said, I don't care what it is. You paid a lot of money for this class and you didn't learn anything. I said, the professor was awful. So you got to get your money back. And they don't think like that. And I say you have to think that way. You have to be creative about it. And for the kids, coming up with these little tips about how to contact, one of my big tips for all the kids is stay in touch with admissions. We have admissions counselors come to the school. If you're interested in that school, make friends immediately. Get the card, write them. It was so nice seeing you. Here's a question. Every now and then contact them. I'm thinking about taking this class next semester. What do you think? Would that be okay on my transcript? I'm thinking of dropping. I said, just call them, right? Oh, guess what? I just wanted you to know I got this award. Make friends so that you're top of mind when they go into the admissions meeting. Not your parents, you. And so, I keep trying to talk to them about that. And I say, ask them questions, ask them interesting questions. Most of them have graduated from the schools they're representing. Well, what did you really like about that school? What didn't you really like? What would I have to look out for if I went there? Make sure you visit and actually try to meet them while they're on campus. I said, chat with them like this on Google Chat or whatever, but just stay in contact. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give them, because you want to be known. And it's all a relationship business. You may not have the strongest transcript, but that admissions counselor loves you. For some reason you hit it off, and she'll go in there and advocate for you. He might, but you know what? I know this kid's going to be successful because they're going to relate to something in you that they see in themselves, and they were successful at this college, so they're going to promote you.
For sure. They definitely have the power in those closed meetings. They can't advocate for every student they love, but they can definitely pick a handful each cycle and push a little bit extra hard for those specific students. And it's going to be the ones they know a bit more, because the more they know you, the more they're going to like you. If they don't know anything about you personally other than what's on the application, it's going to be a little bit tougher for them to relate to you to the same extent and then be able to push for you. And the ones who are going to come to mind are the ones who have reached out via email, via phone, kept in touch, even meeting in person on campus if possible, or when they came to your school. So definitely don't be shy. They are human beings. And coming back to the idea of that bedazzlement, they're just human beings. And schools, they're not mysterious institutions. You might be bedazzled by them now. You might be super impressed with them now. But even I went to Columbia and I was bedazzled as a high school kid. But then once I got to campus, I saw Columbia for its good and for its bad. And Columbia is one of the schools in particular. There are a lot of others too, but it's one of those schools where students protest. It's very political. And every semester there was some controversy going on, and it was students versus the administration on some particular topic. So you're able to challenge them, and there is a little bit of back and forth negotiation and push, not only with the political things, but with anything, especially quality. And you have a range of quality in professors. If you read reviews of professors at different universities and colleges, there's going to be some professors people love, there's going to be some professors people hate. They are just institutions, and you can push around, push them, and try to switch if something's not working for you. But even dialing back to before you get in, you can advocate and you can ask questions and ask to make changes maybe. It is allowed.
Yes. And, speaking of demystification, I read a book that I absolutely love that I think parents will love, and kids, because it really outlines the history of the SAT and the APs, as well as demystifies the elite colleges. And you may have probably read it. It's called Excellent Sheep by William Dershowitz. He was an ex-Yale professor, and he really gives the skinny on the inside. Now, is he a little biased? Sure. But I think the information is really good, and it really brings down to earth what goes on at some of the Ivies. So I would recommend that highly for parents and kids to read.
Sure. That's a great one. We'll definitely link to that one in the show notes. Speaking of recommendations, I actually want to shift gears now, move into my favorite part of the interview, which is the lightning round.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some rapid-fire questions. You give me some rapid-fire responses. So you ready?
Yes.
Great. What's your number one piece of advice for the college admissions process?
I think you have to choose based on passion and cost. You don't want to mortgage the house over this. When people look for jobs, they don't, or when ads go in the paper, they don't say, BA from a specific school. They say BA required. Now, will some of the more elite colleges get your foot in the door? Sure, but you're the one who's getting the job. So I would say do not spend a lot. You do not want to go in debt over this at all. If at all possible, go for the free ride over anything else, because you make out of your education what you make. It doesn't matter how good, quote unquote, the school is or not. It's what you put into it. And choose based on your passion. Don't do what your parents are insisting you do. You're going to be miserable, really.
No, 100%. I mean, you definitely don't want to have to transfer or switch. There's a huge switchover cost in time and stress, as well as money too, so keep all of that in mind. Make sure you actually want to be there, and definitely balance the two, the passion and the cost. You got to have both figured out in order to truly be happy in the end. What's one habit that you believe contributes to college admissions success?
Well, we talked about staying in touch with the admissions office, and I think making sure you're meeting your deadlines, right? Also, doing your applications yourself. Don't have your parents do them. Don't have someone else fill them out for you. Do them yourself. If you can't get that done, you shouldn't be going to college, honestly. So really, and being disciplined. Also, big faux pas, this Facebook social media thing, you got to keep it clean, because they do have crawlers out there looking for stuff that you're trying to hide. So clean it up, and nothing ever goes away from the net. There's always a way to find it. So just be very clean about what you're posting, right? Because they want to see the real you. They know what you're giving them on paper, but they want to see the real you. I'm not saying what's on paper isn't real, but there's two sides to every person. You're public and you're private, and they want to get to the bottom of it. So just be careful.
Sure. You got to make sure that you're got all the privacy settings up to date. Go back and delete whatever you think might not be appropriate. They don't always look, but there's that potential out there. And even if not for college, for internships or other stuff down the line too. I mean, Google's pretty powerful, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What's one online college admissions resource that you absolutely love?
I don't know if every high school has it, but the majority of them do. It's called Family Connection. It's Naviance by Hobson, and it's an amazing tool. It actually graphs whether or not you're appropriate or a college is appropriate for you based on whether it's a reach, a good fit, or a safety visually, which is really helpful. And it will recommend colleges to you based on your profile. If your high school doesn't have access to that, then College Board resources are really good. You can use those just to get the college planning process going. So I would say those are my two favorite.
Oh, great ones. We'll link to those in the show notes. I know we already talked about the Standardized Test Book by Dershowitz, but are there any other ones that come to mind?
Yes, there are two. One's called Winning the College Admissions Game. Here's a picture of it. But what's cool is on this side, it's for students, but when you turn it upside down, it's for parents. And it's
clever.
Step by step into the college admissions process. And then there's Harvard Schmarvard by Jay Matthews, who's a big ed writer. And this really talks about choosing the right college for you, which is really important. It's a trophy versus good fit. And so I'm all about the good fit.
Yep, 100%. You gotta have that fit. What are you up to these days, Christine? What are you working on?
Well, apart from doing this, I started my own health coaching business and life coaching business. So I really motivate people to meet their goals, both health goals and, whatever their life goals are. And part of it is, coaching students to get through what they have to get through. So I'm doing that. I also have an ed consulting company called Inspire, where I, work with school districts on problems that they're having, working with special ed curriculum. So I do a lot of different things. I wrote a novel that's just getting republished called The Unholy Ghost, and it's a spiritual thriller. So I'm all over the place, really. But, yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a ton. Wow. Where can folks find you online?
Where can they find? Well, my life coaching is wholelifehealing.net. And my book is soon to be published on Amazon.com, The Unholy Ghost. And the InspireInstitute.com is my ed consulting.
Great. We'll link to all of those in the show notes. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Christina. You gave us a lot of useful tips. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Of course. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to College Admissions Toolbox. Head over to www.collegeadmissionstoolbox.com to get more free tools and resources that will help you get into the colleges of your dreams.